Hey, Anastasis.
Hey Steve,
How are you?
good, good, a bit busy, but good.
Yeah, I mean, the busy is just always the case. So,
Yeah.
morning, Ildiko, morning, Sonko.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Me trying to find the right screen share. Cool. Let's wait a little bit for some more folks to join, and hopefully we get quorum of the AC. Hi, everyone. Morning.
Hi guys.
Hey, Nick. Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Steve.
All right. I guess probably got enough people. We can get started. So, I guess we'll look through the previous sections. Yeah, Aurelian, I know you missed the last few meetings, so I'm not sure if you've caught up on the minutes, but we discussed the Taplow proposal that Ruching has made, and the AC voted that you get to review it, as you'd already commented on it before. So yeah, if you have a chance to look at that, that would be great.
Yep, that sounds good. I'll take a look right after this meeting.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. The other minutes we had was, sorry, actions we had from last week was for me to create a Slack poll to discuss Rust version, and we'll talk about the outcome of that later, and that's been done, and Ildiko to notify about the GitHub ownership change, and that was done. The owners have been updated. I will probably be looking at updating the admin list tomorrow. I'm just trying to finalize the extra, if there's any extra people who the AC would vote to give admin permissions in the short term. Okay, okay. Do you want to do this one now,
Yep.
or talk about Rust first, or?
Yeah. So I got a quick idea, just because the community has been talking about a few things to improve, and some of the items are needing decisions. Some of the other ones might be a longer process to get through. And I think people are good with creating issues, but whether or not the issues are moving forward and being closed, we don't always get to monitor those that closely. So I was thinking to create a GitHub project where we can list tasks and give them priority and see where they are, how they are progressing, to keep not every single item, obviously, but the important items, especially those that are cleanup items, procedural updates, things like the vulnerability process is a good one. Anything that's security related fixes that are not under embargo, documentation fixes that we talked about, and there are a few more items on that list. Then we could look at that project at the beginning of the AC calls, as well as it might give some visibility of the high priority sort of cleanup and maintenance items that would be important for the community to get done, but it's easy for them to get buried under, oh, there's a release this week, there's something else that's burning this week, there's CI issues this week, and then people just get distracted. So it's harder to follow up on those things that we talk about at PTGs and some of the AC calls that they should get done, and then they get started. But then in my observation, they don't always get followed through. So I'm looking for ways to make it easier to track whether we're making progress on the things that we want to get done, to then make everyone's life easier on the long run. What do you all think?
Would a good guideline to maybe create or add such issues to that project. I'm sorry, I'm not making sense. It's so early here. Would it be a good guideline to, for every issue that we talk about on in this meeting, and that we want to create an action item for, to add those issues to that project? Is that better?
Um, I think that could be an AC decision. I don't want to go too far in the sense that, we have GitHub issues, and I don't want the project to turn out to be like another really long list of GitHub issues. But I think that if, as you say, if something makes it to this meeting and we feel that it's more like a, I don't know, community level action item, so to say, then I like the idea to also make sure that we track not just what's on it, but what is being added to it. And yeah. Am I answering your question? It's early for me too.
Yeah. I'm just saying that this because at my team at Microsoft, we switched to you know basically just using issues for everything, and it really simplified work tracking. Now it's a bit of overhead, but at least it makes it much easier to assign people to tasks and whatnot, right? So maybe that's something we could look into.
Yeah, and I think that's the idea because most of the time when we have a discussion in the AC about a topic, the action is not normally to say you need to go and solve this problem, but there's quite often an action to create an issue to track it, which we're quite good at creating the issues, but then we've got like 1,500 issues on our backlog. So just because an issue is created, we then probably lose track of a lot of those threads. So yeah, I think it makes sense to, yeah, say the stuff that comes out of AC meetings, we should at least have a discussion and candidate, do they get put on this list? And then we can obviously prioritize and filter the list. But and even if we don't know much, like you say, Aurelian, if we just throw a really, really basic placeholder on there, like performance testing, I know we do have an issue for it with some more stuff, but to start with, there's just we want to collect people's thoughts. So you could just make a performance testing placeholder. People know where to find it. And then we can try and work on filtering that down. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Whether we end up with kind of a two-tier of issues and people don't look at the main issues, but I think that probably is inevitable and happens anyway.
Yeah, I mean, my thinking was, I mean, I even added trimming down number of open issues and PRs to the examples of a task that could go
Mhm.
into this GitHub project. I got the idea from the 4.0 release tracker project thingy. I'm still learning what's available in GitHub that is helpful for for community to use in terms of like tracking progress on things that would be, you know, reducing bottlenecks or unblocking things. So really not talking about issues in the code, but more all these things that we talk about that would be important for the community at large to be able to keep working together, be sustainable, and all those things, and how to give it visibility, how to be able to track, how to make sure that important items have owners and see if they are able to progress with the issue and the topic. And if not, then who else would be able to take over or help out and join that effort. So it's more kind of giving visibility to these things as opposed to dismissing the GitHub issue process that we have. That's not part of the idea. But it sounds like there are no objections per se, as far as I could hear.
Yeah, so essentially the idea is to drive this meeting using that GitHub project, right?
Yeah, I think so. At least part of it.
Mhm.
Because we should also be able to use this meeting to, you know, talk about new ideas. And I also got a quick feedback about how to make this meeting a little more lively sometimes. So that is something that we could talk about.
Mhm.
So I don't want the project to take over the entire meeting, but I think I would like to use that project at the beginning of the meeting to see which are the important items that we want to get done,
Mhm.
whether or not they are moving forward. Like the vulnerability management process is an important one, especially with the Cyber Resilience Act getting to the point in Europe soon-ish where it will actually have um, concrete things on compliance related things. So that regulation kind of requires open source communities to have a vulnerability management process, have it visible for people to be able to find it, because companies will be required that if they uncover a security related issue, they have to be able to at least go and report it to the project. And if they don't know how that process works, that's a problem. And that part is on us as a community. So that is an important thing to move forward. But if we have to go to 1,500 GitHub issues and fish it out whether or not it's moving forward, it's just hard.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I guess these are more, and it might be that it doesn't become this, they're more bigger picture or processy type stuff rather than necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily expect defects to end up on this unless there's obviously a high severity security fixes and stuff like you say. So
Yeah. Yeah, I would, yeah. I'm sure that there's a way to add the description to the GitHub project or something
yeah,
something. So I totally agree that like code related things should not land here. It's more the processes and the things like the documentation fixes, that's borderline. But when it comes to documentation, that is something that maybe on a higher level could be figured out, because it sounds like that while we have a lot of documentation, there's a good chunk that is out of date or not even accurate anymore, like the installation kind of things. And cleaning that up would highly improve user experience. Like figuring out how to keep the documentation up to date is important. So that could be an item for that GitHub project. That would be a priority that I would believe the AC would want to follow up on, whomever does the things.
Yeah, all good points. And you asked one question for the election, and I said I want to update all the documentation and what I'm currently doing. So that's a good point. Yeah, maybe we need. Yeah, I'm not aware that GitHub has a hierarchy of issues. Like if you're talking Jira, like we have epics, right? We could, so what we essentially want to have is epics that we discuss in the AC meetings and that are having lower level stories attached to them, but in the AC meeting discussing the bigger picture, which has a lot of other issues. And I'm not aware that GitHub is giving us something like that. I mean, it's not our point in the AC meeting to go through like the 1,500 issues that we have open, but it would be good that we have some higher level issues then that are capturing the other issues that we have. For example, the road to confidential GPU that I have on the confidential containers, which has a ton of links and groupings of issues that needs to be done to achieve this goal. So maybe we can create, yeah, but we have this already. We are already doing that, grouping issues, higher level issues that are grouping other issues so that we can move forward. We, I mean, we just have too much work and we need more people doing the work. But I agree, we need to push this forward with the documentation. And that's what I said, it was the higher goal for this year for me, to update all those stuff. And I hear you. I will follow up with the security process as soon as possible. But
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. Just I'm constantly looking throughout my career there for the best or for a better tool than to manage things, and I haven't found one. I mean, I've worked for so many companies, and every company has their own tool, but I haven't seen any tool that can help you properly to manage all those things. So there's always some overhead involved in that.
Yeah, and I can like if you all are open to try out the GitHub project idea, I will put items on it and help, maintain the progress, because I think the GitHub project concept has tasks. So I assume we can link issues to it somehow, and be able to track the progress of those tasks that we want as the high level things or procedural things to be sorted out. So we can try it out, and if it doesn't work, then we will do something else. I'm not advocating for it in the sense that this is what it's going to be forever, but just trying out something that could help us figure out how far we got with things that we all believe are important. And I didn't mean to single out. I think Zvonko, I picked your items sort of by accident. But I did not mean to single people out here to say that, oh, this is not progressing. I'm just saying that there are things and like figuring out how to reduce the number of open issues and PRs. That is something that I think would be important for the community. Sometimes I get feedback about that too, that there are just so many things that people get lost in terms of what is still relevant and what's going on. Just yeah, I've been just thinking what we could try that might make it easier to track the progress of those things that the AC said is important for the community to figure out so that our life gets easier. Because Zvonko is one thing that, the documentation gets up to date, but I think it's also important to think about how the community at large can keep it up to date. Like, is there a process, like how PRs get reviewed to make sure that if there's a documentation piece, then it gets done in that PR or in a follow-up PR somehow, because that can get detached, in my experience, from other communities, the code work and the documentation work. So like if it's fixed up a little bit, how to keep it more up to date onwards, and that should not be one person's responsibility.
Right. Well, one thing to consider is that we are moving so fast that a lot of things change, and it should be then in the mindset of those people, or just making sure, as you said, reviewing the PRs, just making sure is there any documentation attached to that that needs to be updated as well, and just hint to them that, for example, yeah, we're gonna merge this PR, but show me your follow-up PR on the documentation or something like that. I don't know. We just need to be more conscious about this one. But so many things are changing. For example, now the snapshotter thing. Uh, we had NIDIS documentation in Kata, we had NIDIS documentation in confidential containers, then multiple steps, multiple how-tos, how to do that. And now we are changing this snapshotter thing again. So maybe this is a good thing to see on how we can, not saying enforce, but make sure that the documentation is up to date and that we are removing all the traces that are not valid anymore.
Yeah, I agree, and I like that. I mean, we always need to think about user experience too, and figuring figure out how we can make it the easiest for the active contributors to cover all those aspects. Because then if things are changing under the hood and there's no way of tracking that for someone who's not actively working on that part of the code base, then it's going to be a bad user experience for others, and then it's going to get problematic to get new users or keep users engaged if things keep changing and there's not an easy enough way to follow what's been going on. But anyway, I don't want to rabbit hole on documentation. But that one is a good example of having a higher level piece to track for us that needs to be figured out. Us as AC, I mean.
Yep, I think it's definitely worth a try. And the worst thing that might happen is we might learn some stuff and decide that it's not the best approach. But I think that's, yeah, definitely worth the experimenting with it. And I know in GitHub projects we haven't necessarily used them that much, but you can set priorities and targets, milestones, all that, and we don't necessarily have to use all of that. But it might be that we go, oh, for let's have a doc fixing release or something, and then we can use that project to track some of the more significant things in there. So
Okay, great. I'll go ahead and create one, and then we can work together to put it together so that it captures these things and figuring out how to settle the priorities and everything. And yeah, if it doesn't work out, I will take care of cleaning it up.
right. Thank you. Any last thoughts or comments before we move on? Okay, cool. So yeah, we had a discussion last week about Rust versions and decided after we would release, which if people haven't seen, the release went out yesterday, whether we wanted to pick what kind of strategy we wanted to look at. I created a Slack poll in the call. We had a kind of slight preference towards picking the latest stable, which in our case would be 187. It wasn't definitive, I will say, the poll, but we had more people who seemed to be a little bit more cautious than picking the latest. So, like Marcus said, having one that was in a distro would be helpful, and he was concerned about picking 187 because it only released last week. Greg said 186 would be okay. Manuel said that from Microsoft's perspective, they wanted 185 at the moment, and they weren't ready to go higher. So I guess based on that, it looks like 185, and there's actually .1 release, so we should pick that up to get the extra fixes. Seems to be a good starting point. I don't think we are necessarily settled that we will be N-2 or anything like this, but I think that's probably a good place to start. But yeah, interested if anyone who didn't have a chance to have their say has got any comments, or if the people who originally were keen to have a newer version, if 185 works for them. It is the 2024 edition one, which comes with some extra stuff. So I think it's significantly better than 180, which we're on at the moment. So yeah, any thoughts on if that's an issue, or any strong objections to go into 1851 in the next, I guess, few days?
All good from my side.
Cool. Thanks, Ronan. And in that case, reaching, you don't have to be bound by it, but I think you mentioned last week you would be keen to take ownership of this. If you don't have capacity, that's totally fine, but I'll give you first refusal.
I'm sorry. Is someone already doing this job, or I didn't get it, sorry.
Sorry, so I think last week on the text chat you mentioned that you would be happy to take the action to bump it. So
Yes.
there was somebody started a bump to 186, if we can find it. Yeah, at this point. So it might be that some of these commits can be moved across, but otherwise, I don't think anyone owns it because we've only just made the decision to move. So I was just asking if you're still interested in taking ownership of this.
Yep, sure. Should we ask this developer about his opinion, and if it is okay for me to take over this job, to bump it to 185?
I think you can just go ahead um, with it. So it might be that some of Ryan's commits can be cherry picked in, but yeah, because it's not exactly the same version, I'm not 100% sure if all of these are applicable to 185.
Yep, noted. I will raise a PR tomorrow.
Great, that sounds awesome. Cool. Great, awesome. Okay, I think we're at the end of the agenda we had. Is there any topics other people wanted to raise and discuss this week? Okay. And nice change from we've had some very full meetings recently, so I guess we can leave it there and give people a little bit of time back.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Okay, cool. Cheers, folks.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.